we are on here and ready. Um, yeah, I think someone just asked who's going to camp meeting. I'd love to see who's going. We have officially sold out on all of our glamping tents. So those are completely sold out, which is really exciting. I think we still have about 25 campsites available. So if you're planning on coming and camping, you want to make sure that you reserve one of those campsites because they will sell out. We've sold out every single year. So if you're planning on getting a campsite, make sure you get those. We do not have an RV area. But there are several like RV parks nearby. So there's a great KOA in Wilmington. And then there's just like literally hundreds of RV parks because we live right by the beach. So it's actually a really big place where people come and travel. But we're only having tent camping available on the actual blueberry farm, mostly because Parker's like, I don't really want the RV vibe on the land. So yeah, make sure to reserve that. Actually, I will just throw up on there for you guys the link for that. And one thing too is if you are planning to come to camp meeting, if you're planning on getting a hotel, one thing that I will tell you as well. So we live in a small town and there are not tons of hotels nearby. And it's a beach town. So the hotels do sell out. So we had several people last year come to our camp meeting and plan to get a hotel right when they arrived and they were sold out. So this is like one of the prime beach destinations in the Carolinas. So there are people that like, there's usually no Airbnbs available. There's usually no hotels. So if you're planning to get any of that stuff, just make sure to book it ASAP because I would hate for you to get here and then have nowhere to stay, which has happened for people before. And we had to have them like room with random people in our church. So anyway, I'm really excited for you guys to join camp meeting. I'm really excited for today's session. So I have the special privilege today at 11:30 he'll be joining us, but my friend Mikey Taylor, I don't know if any of you guys looked at his Instagram or any of that stuff, but he is one of the best like financial wealth advisors that I know of. Parker and I met him randomly on the beach in Central Coast, California. He was the co-founder of St. Archer Brewery. So if you've ever heard of St. Archer Brewery, he sold it for multi-millions of dollars to Miller Coors, was a pro skateboarder. He's a born again believer. He's on Jack Hibbs' board. So if you know Jack Hibbs, Calvary Chapel, he serves on his board as well as runs a financial company, and now is on the city council for Thousand Oaks. So talking about a full life. I feel like he's done it all. Every time we like see something that he posts, it's like, what's he doing now? Oh, he's running for city council. Like, of course he is. And so I just feel like those personalities, yes, Thousand Oaks, California. So he sits on the city council there. And so it's just one of those funny things. I always feel like people that are busy tend to get a lot done. So I always am like, don't plan to do a lot if you're doing nothing. Usually you got to get started doing something and then the Lord will actually give you more to steward. So it's always easier to move a driving car than a car that's in park. So I am always encouraged to be around people that are motivated, ambitious, and just don't believe the lies that, they've done a lot and, he's a multi-millionaire, so he should just settle. But he wants to really make an impact for the kingdom. And so I always want to surround myself with people like that. So I'm really excited. So what I want you to be doing is this. When he comes onto the chat, we will be doing lots of Q&As. So make sure if questions come up that you're thinking of to put them in the chat, because I'll be looking at those to pull a lot of the questions from. So if you have any financial questions, I'm talking about like investing, or should I own a house or rent a house in this market? What's like, if I have $20,000, what's the best way to invest that right now? Like anything like that, or how do I invest? Any of those things, you can just begin to write that down. So really quick, Nancy asked where you can catch the videos. So if you go into jessi-green.com and you log into your account every week, you can find access to every single week. So usually they're posted about a day or a day and a half later, because Angel on our team edits them. But at any time, you can go there and revisit that and see all of them. So all the last 4 weeks, including week 5, will be up in there. So, and they're all broken up week by week. So, really quickly, hold on. Let me see. I'm going to scroll through here really fast. Let's see. Linda, there you are. Linda, I'm going to unmute you for 1 second.
Hey there.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. So really quickly, I would just love if you would actually, I saw that you have a course on praying in tongues. And I would just love if you could take like maybe 2 minutes and just like share about that course that you're doing. I know that you're a part of Todd and Karen Smith's church in Dawsonville. And as many people know, they're going to be part of camp meeting this year. But I would love if you could talk about that really briefly.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. So, Pastor Todd Smith wrote a book, Speaking in Tongues, in 2019. And I grabbed hold of that book and I started I felt led to teach classes. And so, in that process, I don't know, Jessi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Okay. So anyway, in that process, as I started teaching the classes, Pastor Todd Smith came to me and he said, I would love for you to write a book, to co-author a book with me to go alongside of this. And so anyway, so this class is for everyone. If you already are baptized in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, take this class, because what will happen is, number one, it's just going to equip and empower you to go deeper in your prayer life. But my heart and passion for this class is so that people go out and multiply, that you don't get hung up on sharing about the baptism of the Holy Spirit and about speaking in tongues with other people. It's just a highly controversial topic. It was the day it was birthed at Pentecost, right? They were like, are they drunk? Are they crazy? Are they out of their mind? And so anyway, so I'd love for you to come and just get more understanding and knowledge about just the questions that people ask about it. And then also, if you're someone out there and you don't have your prayer language, come and take this class. It's amazing. I was blown away by people that have taken this class. Like, I had one man come, he was like, for years, he said 20 or 30 years, he had been seeking the Lord to receive his prayer language, and he received his language the first day in class. So anyway, this class is absolutely free. Just share it with anyone. Like I said, Pastor Todd and I have a book together, but that is not required to take this class. So anyway, I would just love to have you and just share it with anyone. If anyone has struggled, or there's people that come and take this class too, that they have prayed in tongues before, and then all of a sudden they're blocked and they're like, I can't do it. Why can I not do this? So we will answer.
I'm going to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
When does the course start?
It is, sorry, Jessi, it's September.
No, you're so good. I did not prep you.
I'm sorry, September. My goodness, September. Where did
Okay, so it starts in September.
No, I'm sorry. No, May 22nd.
Oh,
May. I'm lying. It's May 15th. May 15th. So
and how much does the course cost?
It's free.
It's free. Okay, so can you put a link in the chat for people to sign up for that?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Linda.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Thanks. So I would encourage all of you guys, make sure to sign up for that, especially if you've been wanting to have a prayer language, be filled with the Holy Spirit, activate your prayer life. Just make sure to do that. It's going to be amazing. So you can actually, right there, Linda shared the link. And then for people watching later, I will make sure to share that in the recap notes because I know a lot of people have been like, where can we see all these links that you reference in the video? So I will make sure to put those underneath the video on the recap. Also, really quickly, and I'm going to cruise through some of this because we have a few minutes before Mikey jumps on. So, as you guys know, we have our first ever Ardently retreat coming up. We only have 3 spots left. 3. So we have 1 private room available and then 2 shared room spots available. So if you are wanting to go, email, either just book your spot, or if you need a payment plan, email Victoria like right now, like as I'm talking, email, because it's going to be first come first serve. So the first people that email her for that payment plan, Vic will just give those spots to them. So there's only 3 left. And again, that's going to be at Rosemary Beach in Florida. I'm really excited for that. And just lots of like surprises, and it's just going to be absolutely amazing. So I'm really excited. And then we'll probably do another retreat in 2024 because, as you guys know, I am pregnant and I'm so excited. So some of you didn't know, I can see the reactions on your faces. I've not posted yet on social media, but I'm due mid-November. So this will literally be the last ministry thing that I do before I basically like go off the grid. So, and I'll just be praying and speaking in tongues for 3 months. But yeah, so I really wanted to end my like ministry year with that retreat. So make sure if you're planning to go to that, to lock that in. Also, okay, I'm going to change this to gallery view just so I can see everyone because I'm really excited. So I went through a lot of your responses and have just been praying through some stuff and was looking through our schedule and calendar. And I was like, okay, Vic, is there any possibility for us to like do one more course? And she was like, yes, but it would have to be like on these weeks. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So we were able to make it work. And so starting today, we have made it live. I'm going to share the link. We are going to be doing a dunamis course on the dunamis power of the Holy Spirit. And you can sign up like today for that. We'll start sharing with you guys graphics that you can share on social media as well, which really just helps other people get connected to what we're doing and what's happening. And then it's just more fun with even more people. But we're literally going to talk about ways to activate the Holy Spirit in your everyday life. So are there areas, blind spots where maybe you're quenching the Holy Spirit that you're not even aware of? Another thing that we're going to be talking about is how to actually see healing and miracles and signs and wonders in your life. So I know for me, I felt frustrated for years, just wondering why I was really like not seeing the power of God. And I was like, I believe the gospel, and I like am a follower of Jesus, but I'm not seeing any of the things actually happen in my Christian walk. And so what we're hoping is this actually activates you where you see deliverance, you see healings, you see miracles, that your evangelism actually works. And so I'm really excited for this. So just let me know in the chat if you think you're going to be joining that. But I'm really, really thrilled for that to start. And then we'll be doing a survey. Just if there's any questions that you have regarding the Holy Spirit, hearing his voice, moving in dunamis power, we'll do a survey before the course starts. So I will make sure that we cover every single thing that you possibly could want to know in those 4 weeks. So it's going to be 4 weeks, but it will be 4 intense weeks. So I'm really excited about that. So again, the link I shared up there, all the information's there. So it's just 4 weeks of intensive, like everything you could want to know about the Holy Spirit. So then obviously, where is it? Oh, okay. So we have a giveaway. Let me get this up here. So we're doing a fun giveaway this week, and I'm trying to make sure that this is working. So let's see. All right, hold on. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys the link. So I'm sharing the link right now in the chat. So this is a short that we created on YouTube for the camp meeting. So two things for this giveaway. What you need to do is share the short either on Facebook or Instagram with the link, and you need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we're going to look at everyone that shares and just tag at Jessi Green, whether you share it on Facebook or on Instagram. And this week, so on Friday, we're going to choose one person to win a $150 spa gift card. So I thought, like, right in time for Mother's Day, which is, I know for me, my husband's always like, what do you want for Mother's Day? I'm like, a massage. I want a massage and spa gift card. That's like all I want. I want to go to a spa and be pampered. So we were like, let's pamper someone else. So for the giveaway this week, just share that video and then subscribe to the YouTube channel. And when you do that, you'll be entered in. And so we'll choose the winner and announce it on Friday. And I'll either announce it on social media or actually, you know what? I'll just announce it in next week's Ardently course. So we'll just do it like that. So that's a really easy one. So you could either just share it, put the link in your Instagram, however you want to do it. And then the last thing I have is this. So let's talk about finance stuff really quick before Mikey gets on here. So I wanted to share, I've had a lot of you guys reach out just for some like basic resources and tools. So the first thing is I want to share with you this book that really changed like everything for me when it came to finance. So I just shared the link there. It says David Bach book. How many of you guys have heard of David Bach? Just give me like a wave, hands up. So Corey, I think Corey might be the only one. Anyone else? Jessica? Anyone else? Okay, cool. Well, I love connecting you guys with people that you have maybe never heard of yet. So David Bach is, again, another financial advisor. His podcasts are amazing, but the book that I linked there, I think is one of the best books when it comes to finance. And it's called Smart Women Finish Rich. And what I love about it is the fact that literally, I feel like women are just like really overlooked when it comes to finance. I don't even have to take a poll, but if I just kind of ask you in general, like, how many of you like manage the budget for your household, or how many of you like are practicing investing and are multiplying your wealth and are making generosity and giving goals for your family? Like most of the time, it's maybe a very small handful of women. And I just think that this is one area that kingdom women that, sorry, I have to sneeze. Hold on. Sorry, I did mute it so it wasn't obnoxious. But one of the, thank you, Nicole. Nicole says, bless you. Thank you, Dominga. So one of the things that really bothers me is that, you know, as women, we're called to change the world in a lot of ways. You know, women are extremely prophetic, and we hear the heartbeat of God. You know, we're called to multiply. I feel like more than men, even like women literally multiply life, right? It's like we birth life. So in regards to be fruitful and multiply, like it's literally in our very nature to do that. And so I really feel like it's been a tactic of the enemy to rob us essentially of our ability to multiply wealth. And we've been told, I don't know if you've been told this, but most of us have been told that it's kind of like the guy's thing to do. And so I really love David Bach's teaching. And from that teaching, it really activated me to not just be a victim when it came to finances, but really be on my front foot. And very much of my ministry, one of our five core values for Saturate is radical generosity. So if you've been to any of our events, you know that we sow, and we sow generously. We've given away multiple cars. We've just always planned to be generous in every situation and every circumstance. And so I just want to say, first and foremost, and this is like, oh, and yes, Bach does cover crypto and investing and all of that stuff, Esther. So I saw your question there. But one of the things too to know is, don't be overwhelmed by what you don't know. And I just want to say that when it comes to this finance conversation today, because there was a point where you really didn't know anything about Jesus, and you had to pick up a Bible, you had to get filled with the Holy Spirit, you had to learn, right? You had to humble yourself. And so it's with everything in life. If you just expect to know everything right off the bat, that's just silly thinking, right? So we want to be learners. And there's two apps that David Bach suggests that I'm going to share with you. So the first one is called Acorns. How many of you guys are currently on Acorns? Just say in the chat, me, if you are. So awesome. A lot of you. So I would say when it comes to saving and investing, Acorns is your simplest tool. So this is like investing for dummies. Literally, it's like your absolute simplest tool. So you literally just download the app. So this is the first tool that I used. And literally, I just download the app. And then what I did was I just started to put in what you call spare change, and basically it just rounds up on what you're spending. And you start to save and invest money that you don't even really know you're saving and investing. It just does it automatically for you. And from that, we've been able to do family vacations. We've been able to be very generous when it came to people's weddings or other things like that, by just not even thinking about it, but it happening automatically. The second tool that I want to give to you guys is a tool called Robinhood. So give me a heart emoji in the chat if you use Robinhood. So Robinhood, what's cool is when you sign up, you actually get a free stock. But Robinhood is an incredible tool as well. I would say it's like a level up on Acorns. So Acorns just helps you generally save, and it invests for you. Robinhood, if you want to start learning about stocks and crypto and EFTs and all of that, there are so many tools. And I would say what I do with like a lot of people that I help with this is start with like $100 and choose like 3 companies that you like. So let's say like you take Apple, Target, and Starbucks, right? And let's say you put like $25 in each one of those. And then let's say, I'm just making up something. And let's say you put $25 into Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? Those are cryptocurrencies. Then just like watch it for 30 days and just watch how it goes up and down. And something to learn and know about the investing market is it always will eventually go up. So right now the market's actually down, which if you know anything about investing, which I don't know, some of you are like expert investors and some of you are very new to this, but the best time to buy is when the market is down, because you almost think of it like this. You think of it like going to the clearance rack at Nordstrom. It's like you're getting all of those stocks on sale. So for example, 3 months ago, I put in $1,000 towards Apple, and I've already made $500 from that. And so you start to see, and not every single stock will perform great. So it's good to kind of spread it out, but it's really good to just let it sit there. So I wouldn't say like, don't become a day trader tomorrow and sell and buy every day, because it's a lot of work to actually learn how to do that. But actually pay attention to just learning. So just tell yourself, you know what, for a year, I'm learning. Maybe you do $100 a month in Robinhood just to learn about the market. So I started doing that in 2018. Okay. I put in $100 a month into Robinhood, and I put 10% of my income into Acorns. And then the last one is the most obvious one that I know that you guys know, but at the minimum, everyone say minimum. Okay. At the minimum, you need to be tithing 10% to your church. And that's at the minimum. And we can do a whole lesson one day on tithing and generosity. But I'm telling you, it's out of order for the Lord to bless your finances if you're withholding from the kingdom and the body of Christ. It just is. And I can't get into the whole lesson with it because Mikey's coming on in like a few minutes, but I would just tell you, if you love me, if you trust me, if you love the Bible, if you trust the Bible, at the minimum, before you set up Acorns, before you set up Robinhood, right now, just set up recurring giving to your local church. Make sure that you're tithing. Make sure that you're at least at the minimum giving to the church body that you're gleaning from. And then I would also encourage you, and this is just a principle that I learned that really helped me, is sow into other ministries or other businesses that you want to learn from. So there are several prophets, several revival ministries, and even several other business companies that I just support. I even like just subscribing to their channels and sharing their things, but also financially sowing into them, because I want that same blessing that they have. I want that ripple of what the Lord's doing in their ministry or business to impact me. So the last little thing I'm going to tell you before I get Mikey on here is this: find someone in your life, and you can ask the Lord to highlight this person to you, but find someone in your life that's living with a wealth mindset and not a poverty mindset, and treat them to dinner. And the reason why I'm going to encourage you to do this is because every single one of us in our lives, we have people that are negative Nancy's, that are negative about how bad the economy is and why everything's not working and how expensive eggs are and all of that. Listen, you don't need to hear those voices in your life every single day. You have your perspective from heaven, and you are a child of the Most High God, and you're resourceful, you're creative. It's literally in the times of the Great Depression that we see innovation, we see renaissance, we see creativity, right? So be an innovator, be a solution maker. Maybe you have the next greatest invention in this season that's going to bring in multitudes of finance, right? But you need to surround yourself with people that don't have a poverty mindset, but have a wealth mindset, that look at the resources and the things that are happening and they say, how can I actually serve other people and also multiply and steward what the Lord has given me? So I hope that all makes sense to you. So I am going to bring Mikey on here. I'm going to find him in, let's see. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hi, Mikey. How are
Hey,
you?
good. You were killing it. That was awesome to watch.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you are able to do this. Like my husband and I always rave about just all the investment advice that you give and the testimonies and stories you have of radically changing people's lives is just really motivating. And I'm just really excited for just the wealth of knowledge that you have to share with these women and the women that are watching later.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. And for everyone who I am meeting for the first time, how are you? And I hope everybody's week is going off to a very solid start.
So Mikey, would you mind? I know I shared a little of your bio, but I almost feel like it should be like a Netflix documentary because there's so many like like weird twists and turns to your story.
Right.
So would you mind just telling everyone just a little bit about yourself?
Yes, it's crazy to even think of, because my story is a product of attempting to be as faithful as I can and watching kind of the Lord move me in so many different directions. It almost feels like I'm, alongside going, wow, this is cool. So basically I grew up in Southern California. I picked up a skateboard when I was really young, thinking nothing of it. I just thought it would be kind of the next fun thing I did. I became obsessed with it. I didn't want it to end. And so when I turned 16 and started getting pressure from my parents to basically go get a job and go make some money, I figured out a way to get companies to give me free product. So I sent out like sponsor me tapes, and I had 3 companies that started sending me free shoes and free clothes and free skateboards. And then I was using that to basically sell to other skaters in my community to make some money. And then
Love it.
18, I basically started getting highlighted in the magazines and somehow convinced my parents to allow me or give me their blessing to not go to college and go skateboard for a few years professionally. Now being a parent, I understand why they had so much pushback. And so I go do that for 3 years. At that time, the skateboard industry absolutely explodes to the point where we can actually start making a decent living. That 3-year vision turned into a 15-year career. I became basically top 10 in the world for about a decade. One thing that my parents did, though, and this will kind of lead into the conversation today, the fact that I wasn't going to college, they were so concerned that doors would not open for me that normally would by not going to school. And so they were very concerned about the financial impact it was going to have by me going off and doing this obscure sport. And so they connected me with somebody when I was 19, who by trade was a financial advisor. The blessing he gave me is he mentored me, spent time teaching me basically about budgeting, about building credit, about investing. And then the most impactful part was he was a Christian. So he was giving me biblical wisdom without me even realizing it at that time.
Wow.
Fast forward, I'm 28. I come up with this idea with 2 of my friends to start a craft brewery in San Diego. This is when the industry started booming there. We started a business called St. Archer, and we didn't have enough money to start it ourselves. So we had to create a business plan. We had to go raise money. We opened doors, and from the second we opened the doors for the first day, we realized we had something very special. It
Wow.
was, our problem became we couldn't make enough fast enough. And so we became the fastest growing brewery in California for those first 3.5 years. At year 3, Anheuser-Busch, Constellation, Miller Coors, everyone was basically in a bidding war to buy us. And then we ended
Wow.
up selling our business in 2015. And then I started my current business today, which is Commune Capital. It's a private equity real estate firm. So that means we go out and raise money from investors, and they come in to either a multifamily or a storage unit project that we manage. And then the performance of that asset makes them money, similar to how Jess was talking about making money in the stock market. This is just a similar approach, but an alternative investment in real estate. And then last November, I got elected to city council in Thousand Oaks.
So
My wife,
exciting.
yeah, that was you want to talk about something wild and that the Lord is doing. The local politic level is another thing. So that's the newest thing that I'm doing. And then on social media, about 6 years ago, I started using my reach. I had a pretty large following from skateboarding to create content around financial education, because 20 something years ago, Randy, who my mom connected me with, made such a big impact in my life that I wanted all my following to have the same blessing that I was given. And then I'll tell this real quick, because it's going on a little bit of a tangent. About 2.5 years ago, I think it was 2.5 years ago, right, Jess, when we met?
Yes.
2.5 years ago, my wife and I, our 3 children, and then our cousins went and did a trip up north, right outside of Paso Robles. And we're walking on the beach, and this is kind of during lockdown. So it's in California, for anyone who's not here during that time, there was a heaviness, and it was just
It's
different.
intense.
And Jess and Parker are sitting on this bench, and we walk by, and all of a sudden we kind of just like lock eyes and start this conversation as if we had known each other for a long time. It was really cool. And so we start talking, and I don't know who asked it. Maybe we did. Do you guys go to a church? What do you guys do? And they, explained what they were doing on the beaches, and, with every Saturate OC, is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Yep. And we were like, oh my gosh, no way. Like, we go to church as well. And I'll never forget this. Both of them basically said at the same time, we knew you guys were believers. And we were like, what? That is so cool. And then we just stayed connected on social media. So it was a really cool kind of God event in that moment.
I love when those things happen too. And it's funny because I know after we met you on the beach and finding just a lot of the resources that you share too. And this is why I want to encourage people, and Vic can share in the chat how to even follow you on YouTube and Instagram. So we'll throw that on there. But what I do love is you take really complicated concepts when it comes to finance, investing, and wealth. And honestly, you simplify them to a point where I feel like it whets your appetite to like search it out further. And I think that one of the things that you do that's really helpful is where people kind of feel maybe stuck or overwhelmed. It kind of dismantles that belief that it's too much to handle. And so I know even for us, in that when we actually met you, it was very serendipitous because we were actually asking the Lord for wisdom and strategy when it came to finance. We had just started investing. We had bought Bitcoin at $8,000 before it went to 61, which was great for us. And making plans to purchase a home and start real estate investing. And since then, we've really seen the Lord multiply over and over and over our resources. But I think a big part of that is paying attention to people that know about these things and learning from them. And so I would love to ask you just a few questions. And also, I know the women on here have tons of questions that they can ask in the chat. And then also, Mikey, if there's anything that comes up that you're like, oh, we got to talk about this, you go for it. But the first question I want to ask, this is the question everyone always asks, is if someone has $20,000 to invest, they're like, listen, I've put $20,000 in savings. I know it should not be just sitting in a savings account. What should I do with this? What would you say is probably the best advice for that person?
Okay, so there's going to be somewhat of a two-tier approach, but I'll make the first one a little bit quick and simple. You have to recognize what your opportunity in front of you is. If you're an entrepreneur or you're building a business, the first thing you're going to look at is, how can I invest in myself, in a skill set that I can then go out and multiply my income, right? So investing in yourself would be the best way to probably look at those first dollars in. From there, if maybe you're working more of a conventional career, I would still probably look at maybe investing some of that into what you're doing in that job to see if you can increase your skill that will potentially give you the opportunity to earn more. Once you move past investing in yourself, you have to spend some time addressing your short-term and long-term goals. So short-term goals are going to be anything between, let's call it now and 5 years, anything in a 5-year window. Most people's short-term goals, buying a house is usually buying a condo, a townhome, a house is typically on that list. For anything short-term, you don't want to put that money at risk, right? Just talked about investing, there is risk with it. And if you look over the long term, historically investments go up, but that's over the long term. In the short term, you don't have the luxury of time to write it out. So for those short-term goals, don't worry about growth of that money. Stick it in a CD, put it in a high interest savings account. That money is meant for the short term. Then as you get out on your long-term goals, then I would probably look at, some tax efficient vehicles. We talk about, a Roth IRA. If you are employed by a company who offers a 401k match, If you match your employer, that's a 100% guaranteed return. Always take that. And so, what we recommend, take the 401k match up to that. If you have any leftover, look into a Roth IRA because tax efficiency is wonderful. And then from there, if you want to continue investing in the stock market, that would be your post-tax dollars. So you pay your tax, then invest. Or if you wanted to get into something like real estate, because the barrier to entry is a little bit higher, maybe that goes towards a goal of saving that to then get you to the point of being able to do so.
That's so good. And I feel like that's really helpful too for people to understand the difference between those short-term and long-term investments. Because a lot of times I'll hear people say, oh, well, I have a 401k. And it's like, well, that's really great for like when you're 70, 60 years old, but
Right.
you really can't pull out of that right now. And if you're trying to buy a house, let's say, that's not
Right.
going to really help you accomplish that goal. So I really love that you broke that down. So Mikey, what would you say? I know that you're very passionate about real estate investment. I know even for Parker and I, really changing our mindset in regards to like buying property and paying attention to um the markets in different places and all of that stuff. And I know one of the things that you talked to Parker about was about storage units, which I thought was the weirdest thing when I first heard it. I was like, Parker, he says that you should buy a storage unit. and, and so it's a little bit out of the box, but now I feel like it's becoming a more normal thing that people are talking about. I feel like you're on the cutting edge of the storage unit trend, but could you kind of share a little bit about that? I know Esther asked, like, how do people find multi-unit homes? Or I know I believe that you would almost even suggest people go in on a storage unit over a house, right?
Okay. A lot of
There's
good
a lot
questions.
there.
Okay. Storage, I'll tell this story. That when I was a pro skateboarder, that's when I started investing in storage units. They sounded obscure, they sounded boring. It was very different than what like excited me. But the person who brought it to me said something, and this is what kind of sold me. He was like, hey, go look around your house and see how much stuff you have in there that you don't do anything with. It just sits. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of that. And he's like, okay, people in America do not like getting rid of things. And there comes a point where there is not enough storage for it. Or if you're ever going through a moment in time where things are changing, right? You have to move, maybe you're downsizing. That is typically viewed as temporary. And so a lot of people look for a place to store basically their stuff. And when he said that, I was like, gosh, you're right. Like people, like we do hoard, we do hold a lot of stuff that we don't use. I was like, okay, let's do this. And then I made my first investment in it. I invested passively, which means the group was doing all of the work. They used my capital along with other people's, and then I got to get paid because of it. And I started getting a check that showed up every single quarter, like clockwork. And I was like, ooh, I really, really like this. Then I started telling my friends in the skate industry, guys, you have to invest in storage. And it was like a glaze, like that. No, like that sounds so no, like it's not exciting. And then after 10 years, when I would tell them, guys, this is all the money I made, then they started coming in.
Yeah, you're like, look at the fruit.
Yeah. The question about buying a home or an investment property, what I've said in the past, and I'll tell everybody here, this moment in time is actually really making me it's challenging my view in this conversation. My view was always this: if your mission is financial freedom, right? You want to get to a point where your investments pay you enough to cover your lifestyle, right? You don't have to work. If that's your goal, my recommendation always was buy investment properties first, because when you buy investment properties, those properties pay your debt for the tenant pays your debt, it pays your expenses, and then it pays you cash flow, right? Where my opinion on a primary home was, I have to put my capital into this home, I have to pay the expenses, I have to pay the debt. So money was coming out of my pocket to pay for my home, right?
Right.
Now, the argument to that is, well, yes, but if you're going to rent, you have to pay your rent as well. So you always have a cost of living, right? My point was simply the money that I'm putting in, I would rather put that into investment properties. They're going to experience all the benefits of me living or owning a home plus more, because
Right.
we'll talk about this more, tax efficiency and depreciation, et cetera. But that's only if your goal is financial freedom. If that is not the case and you hold more, you put more value into owning a home than the investment itself, which is absolutely true. There are a lot of phenomenal reasons to own a home. You have to consider that into this conversation. The second one, I bought a house when I was 22. So in 2005, I bought a house. I ended up getting married. We started having kids. About 3 years ago, I was like, babe, let's sell our house. This is the one thing I wish we would have done when I was young, is just go all investment property. Let's go rent for a few years. We end up doing that. My wife hates it. My wife is not on board. My wife's an interior designer. She likes the control of making her home her own. So there's more that goes into that original conversation. The last part, you're seeing something very interesting happen right now, where in a lot of markets we're undersupplied, right? The supply is far below the demand. And from a government or a policy standpoint, all of their policy is going towards affordable housing on the rent side. It's all multifamily, it's all for rent. Plus, when you look at the new generation, you have Gen Z, you have millennial, their view on the value of home ownership is changing. They do not perceive the same amount of value in doing so. So the demand to own homes is going away. Now, historically, home ownership has brought a lot of people out of poverty. And my concern with this, and what I'm being challenged by at the moment, is most people, even though their goal is to achieve financial freedom, that's not what most people do. Most people buy a home, that becomes a forced savings for them. It has the potential to appreciate, but more importantly, it backstops their living cost, right? Rent doesn't get driven up on you.
Right.
And so my concern is, without home ownership, we typically spend everything we make. And I think it's going to have a negative impact for the next generations. But I'm now giving you guys what's going on up here without it really being, fine-tuned. With all that said, whether you own a home or not, I think owning investment properties is a good move to help you achieve financial freedom.
Yeah. So you're saying whether it's the first house you buy or the second, that definitely, because what's interesting too is, so I wonder, Mikey, what do you think about, like, how does Airbnb affect this whole conversation? Because I know for a lot of my friends that are millennials and for Gen Zers especially, a lot of them own Airbnb homes and don't own their own houses that they live in, and they just make money off their Airbnb investments.
Okay, so that example would be in support to, I think, where my belief stands right now. Get at investment properties first, right? When you're young, you're in a position where you typically qualify for first-time home buyer. So FHA loans come into play. This is very little down, and you can buy up to a 4-unit quadplex. I like the idea of starting there and having something be paid for by a tenant, and then down the road getting into a primary. So I think that's awesome. But this kind of goes back to this moment. Somebody asked about the dollar crashing. Right now, we're in a very unique time, in the sense of interest rates have just jumped more than double. And in a lot of markets, the pricing is going up. It is crazy what's happening. And that is because, looking at California, for example, we don't build in California, so we're undersupplied. You have people buying Airbnbs, right? So those Airbnbs will not be for purchase now. They sit on the rental market. You have institutions like BlackRock buying single family, right? And then you have what happened 2 years ago. the lowest interest rates we've ever seen. So you have people locked in at 2 or 3%
Right.
debt. They are not selling their homes right now. If they
Right.
sell to upgrade, if they sell to laterally move, or they sell to downsize, it's more expensive for them. All three options. So you're seeing this moment where there is just no product online.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Correct.
It's we've been talking to several friends that are real estate agents all over, from North Carolina to Texas to California, and literally they're saying that houses are staying on the market for like less than 24 hours because there's just
Yep.
no inventory.
Yep.
And so a lot of times we've heard a lot of people are buying investment homes in more obscure places, just because they literally can't even purchase in like places that are near Target.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
So would you
I,
say another option then, someone asked this question, I actually had the same question, is buying land
mm.
another option then? So if you can't buy, let's say, a house, would the next best option be to purchase maybe a few acres?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It depends. So building is difficult.
So good.
You typically, if you have never built before, it's going to be more expensive than you originally thought. It's going to take way longer, which means more expensive. And for couples, it is a very challenging experience. And so I'm not saying no to it, just it doesn't necessarily mean it's a cheaper option, and you'll have way more brain damage done by doing so, but you get a totally different outcome, right? Like if you are able to do it, you get more land than you're, typically going to get, and you get to design something that is more custom to you and what your family's looking for. Like that's right up my wife's alley. Like my wife she wants to get land, she wants to build. There's pros and cons, but doing that because it's cheaper, that's not always the option. But that's not always the reality.
That's really good. Is there anything that you're finding right now that, like, I love watching like a bunch of like Gary V's stuff because he just cracks me up. I'm like, he's selling like used stuffed animals on eBay. Like, what is he doing? And he just finds like the most random, like niche things to like get a hold of and make a profit on. Is there anything for you where you're like, okay, this is like not a popular thing, but I'm noticing that there is like a little bit of a interest and turnaround on it?
That's a really good question. So for me, what I've had to spend, this is not gonna be the answer you want to hear, but I'm just gonna say it.
Go
For
for it.
me,
Whatever you want to say.
I am I'm the entrepreneur type. I'm the person who like comes up with an idea and is driven by figuring out how to bring that idea to reality. Like that's what kind of gets me going. The challenge in that is, I have a tendency of like chasing the shiny object. Ooh, this would work. Ooh, this would work. So the last 10 years, I've really been working on just honing in and staying disciplined on the thing that I'm looking at. So I'll be totally honest with everyone here. My blinders are on right now, and I am attacking real estate like full stop. It is all action that way. So I don't know if I have the answer for you on like the new kind of hot trend on a flip. But you know what I'll do? I'll hit up Gary, I'll hit up a couple of my friends that are in that, and then I'll screenshot their response, and then I'll post it on my social.
Okay, perfect.
And then I'll
No,
tag you so you can put it in yours.
that's great. No, and I think that's really helpful though, because honestly, even what you're saying, just honing in on that. I know even for my husband and I, we're laser in on real estate right now. So even for us, and this would be counter than what a lot of people, this is not the Dave Ramsey way that we're going, but I know for us, even we are super aggressive when we get an income check or a book sales or something like that, to take a large portion of that and put it into investments to put aside for buying properties. And so we actually will live on a very like limited budget so that we can purchase more property. So if someone, let's say, I'm just going to make up something, but let's say their rent is about half their income, right? Because I would say that most people, especially in like New York, California, some of
Yeah.
those places, it's most of their income is their rent or their mortgage. What would you say, like, what's that sweet margin spot that they should be trying to be saving and investing and putting away and trying to budget wise? Because I feel like a lot of people, we've been told that 10% thing. We all had those banks as little kids, and it's like 10% goes to church,
Yeah.
10% to savings, and then the rest you spend.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was really bad training.
Yeah. So I'll give you there's a very general outline on how much you should spend and then how much you should save. It's the rule's called the 50-30-20 rule. And basically what that means is, and you don't have to follow it exactly, but I'll explain it and then go into how to customize it. 50% of your expenses go towards things you absolutely have to pay for. These are the needs, right? This is your mortgage or your rent, anything that if you don't pay it, something bad happens, right? Then 30% goes towards things you want. This is, travel, this is eating out, etc. And then 20% goes towards savings and investing. That is the most, that's the general rule when it comes to this. Now, you don't have to follow it exactly. Like, if anyone's heard people talk about the FIRE movement is like almost opposite. It's like 50% savings and investing. And then it's like, 20 or 40%, needs, and then 10% wants. Like they don't want on anything. Or you can go the exact opposite. Maybe you're in a position right now where you can only save 5%. What I would recommend is if you're not in a position of saving, start at a smaller number. Just get yourself to the point where you're starting to consistently do it. Another thing to add on top of this, and this is the thing that changed everything for me. When I was young, I read a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And in that book, they break down the concept of paying yourself first, right? Paying you before you pay your expenses. If you haven't done this yet, I'm telling you, this is the thing that changed everything for me. What it means is when you get paid, right when that check hits, you have an automatic withdrawal that takes, in this instance, 20% out of your checking it into a separate account, right? And that money is going to go towards your saving and investing. And then you have the 80% to pay your bills after. It comes secondary, right? It is basically just putting your future as a priority over your bills. Now, naturally, some people will hear that and go, are you crazy? Like, I'm barely getting by. Like, by doing this, I'm going to default on my bills. The wisdom in it is, if you're in a position where you have to pay bills or else something bad happens, right? Or else you default, that back against the wall is typically what gets us to change our behavior, right? We typically won't cut expenses, or if we have to, get a second job just to save a little bit of money. But if you put that money first and all of a sudden you have to make this decision to not default, then typically we put the action out there. It's been a phenomenal approach for me. Anyone I've ever heard do this, the results are amazing. So
Wow.
if you're not doing that, I would really recommend it.
Yeah, that's great. That I haven't read that book. I know Parker has and highly recommends it. But I do think it's again, I think it's a mindset change, right? So it's switching that mindset of lack and poverty and not having enough and surviving to actually reprioritizing what's important. And
Right.
I know for us, like once we made that change, and started just stopped living paycheck to paycheck and feeling overwhelmed every time a medical bill came in or an emergency room visit,
Right.
and started to prioritize what we felt like God was promising us and what we were kind of having vision towards. It felt like a surplus came in. And
Yep.
so I feel like all of that's connected. I do want to ask you a question. I know, Esther, you've asked it a few times. And so but Esther says, how do you find investors to partner with you if you don't have the money to buy investment properties yourself?
Really, really good question. Esther, you beat me to it, Jess. I was going to say, we will not let that question go. And I appreciate the follow-up. Okay, so I'll explain it because there's two parts. For our company, we have investors that come in to invest with us. We have about 500 investors. So the way that we find investors that aren't personal relationships that myself or partners have is through social media. So, we create a lot of content around financial literacy, but we also do sprinkle in what we do in real estate in case somebody wants to look into partnering with us and see if what we're doing fits their needs, right? So that would be from a business standpoint. We use social media to get brand awareness out for people to invest with us. Now, if you're the investor and you're looking at how you find offerings to invest in, there's a handful of ways. You can look at marketplaces. So one of the marketplaces is called CrowdStreet. Another marketplace is Fundrise. These are sites that you can go on that will show you private offerings, and then you can look into them. You can, read all the literature to see if that investment fits you, or you can find people like me that do it individually, or you can basically have somebody that was recommended from a friend that might have a private equity firm, and then get in contact with them. Those are basically was that 3 options, 3 or 4 options?
So would you say, if you do, like, let's say you have a group of friends, would you recommend like investing with friends, or is that like sometimes murky, dangerous waters? Because I'm like, is it almost safer to just you partner with absolute strangers?
Okay, it's such a good question. It depends. It really does. Like one thing that I've done since I started we had to raise money for our first company, the brewery. We raise money from friends and family. With my company now, I have a lot of friends and family in that group. There are a lot of operators that hear that and go, do not do that. Do not bring friends and family into your investment. So I'll give you kind of the view on both sides. One school of thought is when you're investing in other people, you are taking risk, right? There is always risk that something goes wrong. And if something goes wrong, will that challenge or break your relationship? And if the answer is yes, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to put this relationship at risk to potentially make money, right? So that would be one
Wow,
school
that's
of
a
thought.
great question.
The other thing to consider is like if something goes wrong and this is a family member and you see them at Thanksgiving and Christmas, is that now an uncomfortable time with them for the rest of your life, right? That's one side of it. The side of it that I've always looked at, because I took the alternative approach, I let friends and family come in. I believe in what I'm doing wholeheartedly. Everything that I'm building, I'm putting in large part my family and my family's future at risk because I am so confident what I'm doing. And I also believe I have something great that I want my friends to participate in. So I'm under the perception that if I've got something great, why would I hold that from my loved ones?
Right.
Now, I'll hedge this way. There are certain people in my life that have asked to invest it with me that I will not allow. I just know their personality, and I know that it is not a good fit for them, right? So you kind of got to do some due diligence on your end and know, is this going to be the right fit? And if not, tell them up front, this is not going to work. I want you to make money. I think you'll be better with somebody else, and just have the hard conversation up front.
No, that's really good. I think that's, again, and it's funny, sometimes we overlook just using wisdom when it comes to finance. I don't know why. We'll be like really careful about where to go on vacation, but yet we don't apply that same wisdom when it comes to our investments, our resources, and we can kind of be a little lazy with it. And so
Right.
I think that's all really good. And I really love what you said about like, would you be willing to lose that relationship? Because I've seen the ups and downs, especially in pastoring, lots of drama, but then also like lots of rewards. So people that have absolutely crushed it together, and now it's like their family are sealed together forever, taking first class flights to
Right.
Bali.
This is it. And you know what, Nicole Berry just asked this, and it's really relevant. You know, she mentioned my husband went into a 50-50 business with a coworker last year. And for the most part, it works, but I wonder about the future. Now, starting a business with somebody is what I would recommend. It's different than our view of marriage, right? Like, you know, as a believer, you get married, this is it. Like it's me and them. And, you know, for the most part, we don't do things like a prenup or, you know, prepare for it not working. In a business relationship, it's a different outlook. You by and large are married to that person. I mean, it is very similar, but there is a reality that it can end. And so when you are creating a business with somebody, you really want to make sure that you spend the time building out what we call a buy-sell agreement. And that is, if something happens where this partnership does not work, we already have the procedure to follow that will help us navigate through it, right? And what that looks like typically is, if you're trying to exit out of the business, like let's say you and I have a business, a lot of times we're going to spend too much time arguing on what it's worth and how much you owe me or vice versa. You establish that from the beginning. You establish the rules on how you're going to value the company, and then you set the procedures on who gets to buy who out, right? The other thing is 50-50 partnerships are very, very difficult, only because there's moments in time where it's difficult and you have to make a hard decision. And if you guys are at stalemate and no one has the ability to force a move, that can be the deciding factor that puts your business away. That could be the thing that takes your business out. And so what most people recommend, and it's hard to pitch this, is do a 49-51, or give one person out of that 50-50 the ability to make the call. If they give them a little bit more control. Hopefully, you know, in that 50-50 scenario, if you didn't have that, hopefully you never experience that situation. But it is something to be mindful of, that business usually goes through very challenging times. And if you don't have the right partner, that could be the kill shot.
No, that's super helpful. And I know they say that with a lot of entrepreneurial like partnerships and stuff too, that someone should always be the president.
Right.
And then you have a board or a team, and because it just gets just difficult. And I also agree too, just with any kind of investing, I think even if you're buying a home or anything too, my mom's a lawyer. And so I've always been trained to make sure everything's in writing.
Right.
So any kind of agreement that you're making with people, if you're going to buy a house together or even share on a $50 stock together, just to put it in writing so that God forbid something happens, it removes all that miscommunication. And so I love that. Right. So I saw a few people asking this one question. So I wanted to ask, for those that are over 50 years old, Regina said, I've been out of debt for 23 years, including house, which is amazing. Way to go, Regina. She says, I have a 401k, Roth IRA, and one rental house. So Regina's crushing. And she says, of course, the market looks terrible, but we'll ride it out. She goes, do I keep adding to it since it's down?
Okay. Great work. Awesome work. Okay. So our view, and you kind of touched on this earlier, that whenever there's corrections or whenever there's uncertainty, our belief is that creates opportunity. We like heading in a direction that everyone's running from personally. Right. And so in this moment, how we're looking at it as a company, our foot is on the gas. We are really, really driving towards the opportunity. But, and here's the thing to prepare for. Opportunity means that you can't always operate the way you did, let's call it last year, right? So right now there's risk in the debt market. So, you know, you might be changing your strategy, where last year for our company, we may have financed deals up to let's call it 70%. So we would put 30% down, finance the remaining 70. Now it's even lower leverage than that. We're putting 50% down. So in some cases, we're looking at putting 60% down and long-term debt from the jump. So that's a different strategy, but we do believe in using this uncertainty to negotiate better pricing and to find deals where we're coming in below what the value is. So we have basically a built-in equity from the set. So I do think this is a good opportunity. The other thing is, you heard me talk about financing, where I believe you said her name was Regina. Is that correct?
Yes, Regina.
Where Regina, from what it looks like, by and large, is debt-free. So it's more of a all cash position. If you invest all cash, like you don't invest using any financing, probably the best way to look at real estate is as a bond alternative, right? This is an alternative to the bond market. Very, very little risk investing that way. And so what I view the biggest risk as right now, it doesn't even really pertain to you because you're not using debt. My belief is I like debt, the good debt. Bad debt, consumer debt, absolutely not. But we actually use debt in a powerful way because it opens up the idea of tax-free wealth. But for your strategy, I would look at opportunity right now.
That's really good. And I have to ask you, okay, so obviously we know credit cards and all of that, consumer debt, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But could you dive into a little bit more of, like, I know you're talking about loans for investing and stuff like that, but could you expand on that a little bit? Like, what would be maybe a healthy amount of good debt, or it's not all of a sudden something that could overtake someone?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it depends. But what, if anyone has ever heard of the BRRRR strategy, right? This is let me see if I get this right. Buy, renovate, rent, refi, repeat, right? So you buy something, you add value to it, you put a tenant in, you refi, you pull cash out, then you use that cash to do the next property, right? That is a very, how would you say that? That's like a on trend or exciting strategy to follow, right? Because you get to buy one and use that one to multiply. What you want to be mindful of is anytime you are using debt and you're taking one asset to leverage to buy the next, that you're not putting yourself in a position where if one becomes distressed, you lose them all, right? So there is a reality of becoming too leveraged. What banks look at is, when a bank's underwriting a deal, they're looking at your asset's ability to pay its debt. So there's going to be requirements on what we call debt service coverage ratio. And it just means the distance or the margin between your net operating income and then its ability to pay your debt. They're also looking at things like debt yield and cash flows, all these things. A bank typically is going to lend, if it's a institutional lender, they're not going to give you a ton of money, right? They don't want your asset to be distressed. So usually that lands around that 70%, 68%. The thing about debt, and this is, when I talk about good debt and using it, when you're playing the game of tax-free wealth, right? If anyone hasn't read this book, there's another book I would recommend. It's called Tax-Free Wealth. There is a way where you can make money and it not be a taxable event, which means you're pulling out debt to use money and it like a cash out refi, or you're using real estate and depreciation to offset your passive income. So that means income's coming into your pocket, but on paper, you're not showing any income. So it's not a taxable event. What this does is it does push the tax bill out, but what most real estate investors learn to do is push it out basically forever until they die, and that taxable event never hits them. And so because of that, I do like using debt. Now, what other people will say, and this is something to also be mindful of, is you can use more leverage. You just need to understand the risk that's associated with it. And if you're comfortable taking on that risk, then that might be the call for you. So if you're young and you're looking at this going, you know what, I'm going to put 3.5% down on an FHA loan to buy a quadplex, right? That's high leverage. But if something happens, I have time. My time horizon's long because I'm young to rebound. I can wait the however long for my credit to build back. I'm comfortable with that risk. And then if it works, we're talking about a huge return for me. So I think it's important to understand your capacity and if you are able to take the risk you're taking at the life stage you're taking it at.
That's really good. Yeah. And I guess everyone has a different threshold there too, of like, I know some people are super risk adverse.
Right.
And comfort is the main thing, whereas other people are like, blow it all up. Let's just see
Right.
what happens. So
Right.
I do like this question. I think this is probably one that resonates with a lot of people, but if people just right now, let's say they don't have a lot of money, right? Let's say, I'm just going to make up something, but let's say they have an extra $100, if that, right? So what would you suggest like would be the strategy for that person to actually like just start? So like level one, like just start getting unstuck and start actually building wealth for themselves.
Okay, so this is, when I was 19, his name was Randy. When my parents connected me with Randy, I wasn't making any, I was making $800 a month, right? Funny when you think about it. My mom's like, you need to get financial help. My mom making $800 a month. But what he helped me build out is exactly what you just asked. And so I'm going to basically go over what my strategy was. First and foremost, you don't want any bad debt. So if you're in bad debt, any extra dollar you have should be going towards getting you out of it. If you're in consumer debt, right, you're in the negative, you're in defense, you have to get yourself to neutral. And then from neutral, we can go on the offense, right? So considering that's at play, what he had me do was in the pay yourself first model that we were implementing, there was a percentage that I was allocating towards investments every month. And in that, it started the same way we broke it down. It was tax efficient vehicles, right? And then from there, it was stocks and bonds. I was very conventional. You brought up Robinhood, you brought up Acorn, right? How I was investing for me, I personally stayed away from individual stocks. I'm a very basic stock investor. It was funds, mutual funds, low cost ETFs that track the index, very, very conventional way of doing it. And I just wanted to be consistent. My whole model was discipline. So if it was $100 a month, I was putting $100 a month into this. I'm just going to make this up, right? Do not take this as investment advice. I'm going to put $100 into this ETF every single month. That is my strategy. I'm going to stay consistent. And what happens is over time, you look back and you're like, whoa, I've got something sizable because I made my $100 contribution every single month. And then my money started making money. And then it started compounding. And then before you know it, you are absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful advice too, just for people. I like what you said about the discipline of being consistent. Because again, I think it's one of those things that gets you unstuck. So I know for a lot of people that I talk to, especially in church world, they're just so overwhelmed. They're barely able to pay their bills every month, right? But I think it's, again, getting to that point where you're like, no matter what happens, like, even if I need to get a side hustle,
Yep.
like I'm putting this $100 a month towards whether it's stocks and bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever. And I know, honestly, it's one of those weird principles. And it's one of those, I'm like, it is a principle of sowing and reaping. I think it's just like a kingdom law that exists where I believe that once you decide to just do it, no matter what, I know for me, even when I just changed my mind with that, literally it was like God started to create other opportunities for me to build more wealth. And
Right.
so I think it's one of those things, whereas if you're always living paycheck to paycheck, barely surviving and not choosing to be disciplined in that consistency, you're just never going to get out of it. So I feel like for a lot of the women here, like maybe the challenge for you today is like, just start somewhere, write it down and just be like, listen, and for all of us, we're all at different places on this journey, right? So some of you are like, I'm ready to buy an investment home tomorrow. And some of you are like, I need to get a mutual fund or a 401k. I need to talk to my boss and actually fill that paper out at work. But I think that that's a really, really helpful next step because, a lot of times with women too, I think we always think we're going to do it later. And so I want to encourage you too, while you're listening, like, don't think about doing it later. Don't think about doing it next month or the next time you get a raise, or just start. Like, I remember I wrote down, I was like, I'm just going to start saving and investing 30% this month. And if it means like I have to eat ground beef and salad every day, like that's what it's going to be. But I'm not going to just live in that struggle,
Yep. I'm going to add something to it before. I just want to give some confidence. I think Terry Happy. I'll answer your question on the dollar crashing, because I got you there. And then Andra, student loans typically, most people leave student loans similar to like their mortgage. They just keep paying that. They just want to get out of the consumer debt or anything that the interest rate is driving up in an astronomical amount. But something you just said, and I want to add to this because this was my experience. When I first started investing, I wasn't investing enough money for it to move the needle. It was a very small amount. But what it did for me is I created the discipline, and then I started becoming obsessed with the result, right? Once I started seeing that number growing, that's what it took for me to buckle down and go, okay, you know what? I'm only going to live off 20% of my income. I'm going all in on this. Like it created a fire underneath me. So I would absolutely set the goal of putting anything you can in that's going to allow you to be consistent. If it's $10 a month, pick $10 a month, force yourself to stay on track with it and hold it. And once that discipline becomes set, then add to it. It's something that, now we're talking about Proverbs and, the idea of being responsible with little so that you can be responsible with more, right? Or if you're responsible with little, God will bless you with more. This is the responsible with little. This is building the foundation so that you are put in a position to handle more and more and more. So don't worry about the number. Just pick anything that you can stay consistent with is what I would do. The dollar crashing, because this is absolutely the most common asked question on social media right now. And if anyone's on Instagram, go to my page. I just did a video about the debt ceiling. And then if you look back, I did another one on this exact topic. My view on the dollar crashing, I do not think the dollar is going to crash right now. What you're seeing is, and by and large, with Ukraine, the government ultimately weaponized the dollar, right? We stopped allowing Russia to use our system and our money based on decisions they were making. Because of that, that highlighted a risk for other countries to do business with us, right? And some of that you're hearing right now about the US no longer being the world reserve currency, right? If the US no longer is the world reserve currency, I do not believe that means the dollar crashes. I believe that the value of the dollar is based on our economy. And if our economy is sound and solid, I don't think the crash happens, right? If you look at other countries, Europe's not the world reserve currency. They're doing fine, right? There's also something that's changing where there's an argument to be made that the dollar is no longer the petrodollar. As we move away from gas and into this, clean energy system, that does the dollar or the petrodollar even play, right? There's more outcomes that can happen, but this is what I want to ultimately say with this. Somebody brought up rent and will people be able to afford rent? If the dollar crashes and the US really goes into what we're looking at as catastrophic, none of us on this call are going to be concerned about wealth building. None of us are going to care about assets at all.
Wow.
What we're really going to talk about is, how do I protect myself And where's my food and water coming from? Like, we're truly going into a scenario where this doesn't matter. And so how my view on investing is, I'm making decisions and investing in things that can withstand normal, how would you call it?
Like the
Normal
ebbs and
discrepancy.
flows of,
Correct. I am not making investment decisions based on Armageddon, because I don't think they're even relevant in that scenario. Now, where I'm going
So
to
good.
follow with this, we know where the story ends, right? There is going to come a time where some of the stuff that we're seeing now comes into play, right? Like, you know, I do think in our lifetime, we are going to see the scenario where there's digital currency, that there's one currency that we are all using. And I do believe in our lifetime, we are going to see a mark that we will have to have, or make the decision to have, that will allow us to participate in society. I think we're going to see that in our lifetime. My personal belief, as we kind of get into eschatology, I'm more of a pre-trib rapture. And so my view is that we are not going to be here to see that, but I do think that's going to happen in you know, for the Gen Z millennial generation. I think we're going to see that. I could be totally wrong. We've been saying that since Jesus came, but I think it is relevant to consider that with some of the things that we're seeing being made with our currency, with, you know, things like the Fed now, and all of these kind of instances that are somewhat concerning for us. My view is there's a part of this that's actually cool to watch as well, or exciting, because, you know, in this moment, you're seeing God work. You're seeing, you know, things that he spoke of thousands of years ago coming into play in our lifetime. So I'm kind of encouraged by it as well. I know that sounds crazy, but that's my view of the moment.
Well, what I love about you too is, though, you don't just allow things to happen to you. So even the fact that, like, you're now on the city council for Thousand Oaks, it's like a lot of people like complain about the government in California, but they just don't do anything. And so I love that in every area, whether it's politics or finance or your family, you make sure to have that front foot. And I think that for all of us on this call, I think that that's what we need to remember too, is we're not victims of our circumstances, and even victims to the economy, right? And so I think it's really important. And I love that you don't make your decisions fear-based. There's a lot of wisdom to that too, because I see a lot of people making weird financial decisions based out of fear and fake news cycles and just craziness. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is just, you would not do this in a normal situation.
If you don't mind, I'm going to add to the media side of it, because this is something that we're spending a lot of time creating content on, and even educating our investors with. When you look at media right now, right, you have legacy media, and you're seeing, you know, the market share be rapidly pulled away from legacy into alternatives, right? Social media, podcasts, et cetera. And what that's done is it's incentivized legacy media to really try to grab as much attention as possible. So the clickbaitness of a title is everything for them, because they have to drive the attention in. And on top of that, when you look at human behavior, if it's something negative or it's fear-based, we're driven towards it almost at a 10 times rate, as if in comparison to creating an optimistic message or a positive message. And so on the legacy side, you have to understand that they are incentivized to create fear-driven clickbait titles to get you over there, right? Then on alternatives, influencers right now are actually incentivized to do the same thing. And it's difficult not to get caught up in this game. And this will make sense why I'm explaining it. Influencers, by and large, gauge their success based on the amount of views a video gets and their follower count and the growth of their follower account. And how social media is moving now in the speed in which people scroll, what you have to do is say something that just, boom, okay, stopped them, right? And a lot of influencers do that by creating the same fear style headline that legacy media uses to grab. knowing that they're going to get a 10-time higher engagement rate by doing so. And so what you see is an influx of media putting out more of a fear-driven content. What we all need to be mindful of is what the purpose of media is. The purpose of media is not to make anyone in this room wealthy, not their purpose. The purpose of media is to get you to watch them, and is to get you to stay on that channel for as long as possible. When you look at it through that lens, the emotion that they're driving stops having as big of an effect as it does on the way you invest. A perfect example of this is going back to 2008, right? If all of us could go back to 2009, 2010 and buy real estate, would you? Every single one of us would. I challenge everyone to go do this exercise. Google real estate headlines for 2008, 9, and 10. It was all the same type of headlines we're seeing now. The real estate market is in turmoil. It's crashing. There is no sight of recovery, right? And so if you look at media and the moment we're in, most people didn't invest in real estate at that time. Knowing what we know now, we absolutely would have done it. The same thing is at play right this second. So just separate the purpose of each category and then make decisions knowing that media is not here to be our financial advisor.
That's so good. And two quick questions because we have to wrap up here. I just want to ask you though, do you offer any kind of coaching or anything like that? A few people asked, do you have any courses or coaching available?
You know what? I don't, but that's been a really common asked question lately is a lot of our videos have started to go like really viral and the audience has been growing. I am playing around with the idea of doing it. It's not something we do, but there are so many people starting to ask, it might be time for that.
Yeah, if you do, let us know. I'll definitely share it with all these women. I know lots and lots of people that would love to learn, especially lots of men that are not on this call as well. And then the last question I had too is in regards to commune capital. If someone wanted to start investing with you guys, what's their initial investment need to be? What's their minimum?
Okay, so this was the challenge of starting this business. We are regulated by the SEC, and the SEC has certain guidelines that personally I don't love. But one of their guidelines is you have to be an accredited investor for the majority of private offerings. An accredited investor means if you're single, you make $200,000 a year. If you're married, you make $300,000 a year, or you have a net worth over $1 million, excluding your primary residence, right? The reason they do that is they think based on the amount of money that you make, you should have more understanding of the investment you're making. And so that becomes their qualification. My pushback on it, I have a lot of friends that are making $3, $4, $5 million a year. They don't know anything about money. They just know how to make it. I have other friends that are making 50, 60 grand a year. They know more about money than I do, right? So I don't think that's a fair assessment. That's what they've given us. So for our offerings right now, you have to be an accredited investor, but we are about to put in a new offering that will have to go through the SEC approval that will allow people to invest with us who are non-accredited investors, and the minimum investment will be much smaller. And so I'm really hoping that that fund gets launched this year. Worst case scenario, in my perspective, first quarter of next.
Okay, awesome. So we will definitely stay tuned for that.
So if you're interested and you want to hear about it, you can find my Instagram, Mikey Taylor, or I'm on every platform. You'll be able to get to Commune from there. Or if you want to just look at the site, it's communecapital.com.
So good. Yeah. And I'll make sure for the recap of this video to include all those links too for people that are watching later on. So Mikey, thank you so, so much. I feel like all of us are like, well, we need to read so many books, and just really piqued a lot of interest. So I thank you for your time, and just really appreciate just the endless amounts of knowledge and wisdom you have. And it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And I'm looking forward to doing this in real life. And
Yes.
thank you everyone. If I can leave with one thing over the next 30 seconds, I would say, mentioning that there'd be a lot of husbands or some of the guys that would want to be involved. the greatest thing that I learned that completely changed our marriage was Jen and I going at our finances together. In the beginning of
good.
our marriage, it wasn't the case. I did everything financially. The point in which we started making investment decisions together, we started going over our budget together. That was a huge step in our relationship, and it's been completely different since. So I would really
Wow.
encourage everyone, whether you're the one that's managing the finances or your husband, have the conversation with them and start looking at ways to do this together. Even if one is stronger than the other, it'll bless your marriage.
That's so good. That's really good advice. So thank you. And everyone, thanks for joining. And make sure if you want to get that retreat spot, there's only 3 left. So make sure to lock that in. And yeah, we'll see you next week's the last week, everyone. So bye, everyone.